You got the way with them? Okay, cool. Go ahead.
And lavish gold out of the bag,
Go ahead.
and weigh silver in the balance, and hire a goldsmith, and he maketh it a god. They fall down, yea, they worship.
So in verse 5, God is talking about how, man is trying to make these small gods equal with him. So now as we look at verse 6, he's giving you the play behind, what man does with gold to graven it in the image of a god. So that's why he said what? Lavish gold out of the bag and weigh silver in the balance, and hire a goldsmith and make it a god. They fall down, yeah, they worship. But what it say in verse 7, bro?
They bear him upon the shoulder, they carry him, and set him in his place, and he stands. For his place shall he not remove, from his place shall he not remove. Yea, one shall cry unto him, and cannot answer, nor save him out of his trouble.
So this is, God letting us that these images or these graven images that man create, they can't save you out of your trouble. Right? Let's say in verse 8.
Remember this, and show yourselves men. Bring it again to mind, O ye transgressors.
Go ahead, verse 9.
Remember the former things of old.
Go ahead.
For I am God, and there is none else.
You see that? I am God. We talking about the true and living God. So what God is doing is he's showing a comparison to these graven images that, they can't deliver you from trouble. They can't breathe into you the breath of life and you become a living soul. They can't do any of that. So now what we're seeing is that the true living God is saying in verse 9, remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is none else. What else it say?
I am God and there is none like me.
You see that? There's none like the true and living God. What it say in verse 10 though?
Declare the end from the beginning.
So God of Israel, he declared the beginning. He declared the end from the very beginning. So as we understand that on the creation, we understand, the Sabbath, how the Sabbath is supposed to be kept, how we are to bring any burdens into the Sabbath, how we're not supposed to be dealing with our pleasures pertaining to the Sabbath, how we're supposed to not be buying and selling. Those are the rules and regulations to how to keep the Sabbath. But we're going to deal with today, we're going to deal with that this day points to the future. This day is hallowed because it has a great significance behind it. And that's what we're going to deal with pertaining to the creation. So even the little kids, y'all got some crayons or whatever. I think my daughter, she got like a box of them. I don't know if she bought them or not. But, even you guys can participate because we got this nice whiteboard. This right here catches a lot of people's attention, especially kids. So, if y'all want, y'all grab some crayons and follow along, but we just going to run through the creation. We see in verse 10, it says what? God declared the end from the beginning. And what else it say?
And from ancient times, the things that are not yet done.
Go ahead.
Saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasures.
And I will do all my pleasures. So we says that what? It says from ancient times, things that are not yet done. But we see is that what? God declared the end from the beginning. Let's go over to Genesis. Let's go on to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. Let me know if I'm covering up the board, Tony. Because I don't want to be in front of the board. So let me know, hey brother, you might need to move to the side. Alright. So let's pick it up let's go to the creation. And let's pick it up at Genesis chapter 1. And we're going to pick up at verse 1. When you get it, better read it, bro.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Go ahead.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of water.
So we're looking at the beginning of the creation. We see is that what? It says the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. What's in verse 3?
And God said, let there be light, and there was light.
Go ahead.
And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness.
So we see is that God said, let there be light. What we're going to understand is that this light right here isn't the sun or the moon or stars. We're going to get to that day on day 4. But this light right here is the light or the idea or the plan that God had came up with to deliver man from sin or to deliver man from death. So what we're going to do on the whiteboard, right in the corner, we just going to put, the word light. We're going to underline and highlight it, and we're going to add other things into it, because this light right here, it has a great significance or a great reward that comes with it. Alright? So we see in what in verse 4 it says, and God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Alright? But what does it say in verse 5 though?
God called the light day, and the darkness he called night.
Go ahead.
And the evening and the morning were the first day.
So what as to what we see in day one, and y'all got to keep it down, Dave. All right, Micah, yeah, y'all got to keep it down, right? So in day one of creation, anybody determine the day as to what we can see?
Night day.
Okay. Anybody else?
What that night and day was there?
Evening, morning. We see night and day, but what we saw in the bottom of that verse 5, it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So that's what determined day one. See, as we continue to read throughout the creation, we're going to understand is that there was no sun, no moon, or no stars before we got to day 4. So as we continue to read, by evening and morning at this point is what determined the day. All right? So let's go over here to 2 Peter chapter 3 real quick. And let's look at, now we understand is that what? Evening and morning is what determined the day, right? So how long was the day? Anybody? Was this a literal day, or how long was this day? Okay. That's a good answer. That's what we're about to read in the 2 Peter chapter 3 as well. So about 1,000 years. That's what determined the day. We're going to see throughout the creation is that, the days within inside of the creation wasn't set up on a 24-hour clock. Nah, it wasn't. A day, it wasn't a literal day. You know what I mean? That's what we can read in the 2 Peter chapter 3. And pick up at verse 6, bro. When you get it, you can read it.
Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished.
Go ahead.
But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, or reserved on fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men.
Go ahead.
But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing. Now 1 day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day.
So we see that 1 day unto the Lord is 1,000 years as man. That's what we see even with inside the creation. We see that God day to us is 1,000 years. Alright? So you can go to Psalm chapter 9, it'll confirm what a day is unto God versus unto us. 1,000 years. So we see that what? On day 1, we understand that evening and morning is what determined the day. But we also realize that day 1 isn't a literal day 1. It actually equals out to 1,000 years. That's what we just saw in what? 2 Peter chapter 3, is that correct? Alright. So we see is that now day 1 is actually 1,000 years. And if you put on the back of your chart, you can actually pinpoint this information inside a little grid on the back of the chart. Alright? So we see is that day 1 we got light. Evening and morning is what determined this day. And then we know is that what? Of course in 2 Peter chapter 3, 1,000 years is unto man, but 1 day is unto the Lord. Alright? Let's go a little bit further. Let's go over here to Psalms chapter 104. And let's look at this actual light. Because we saw in the beginning that, God created light. But was this light actually created? No, it wasn't. It was just a thought or a plan that the God family came up with to, deliver man from death. So as we get to understand inside of the creation, we're going to realize that, this light that we can deal with, it wasn't created. You know what I mean? This was, conversation that played out between the God and said, hey, you know what? We got to come up with a plan to deliver man from death. And this is the plan that we're about to read. So let's pick up at Psalm chapter 104 and verse 1. Psalms 104 and verse 1. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, thou art very great.
Go ahead.
Thou art clothed with honor and majesty.
So we see is that God is clothed with honor and majesty. Go ahead and say in verse 2.
Who covers thyself with light as with a garment.
Go ahead.
Who stretcheth out the heavens like a curtain.
So God is the one who stretches out the heaven like a curtain. But we see that what? He's clothed in light. It says what? Who covers thyself with light as with a garment. So his makeup is nothing but light. So what we're dealing with, we're dealing with, or we're proving the fact that, the saying is that within the third heaven, there's a light where the Father and Son dwell at. But if we are reading that God himself is light, what would be the point of that light? You understand what I'm saying? For instance, right? I got a cell phone. I got the cell phone right here, right? And on my cell phone, I got a flashlight. Now, it's a little dim in here right now because we want to make sure that the camera can pick up the feed on board. But, if I'm back here trying to read a writing on this wall, I don't need this flashlight to actually read the writing on the wall because we already have a ray of light. So that's just looking at the fact that why would there be a purpose of a light where the Father and the Son dwell at? But as what we just read in Psalms 104, what? He's clothed in light. So his makeup himself is light. Alright? So we see is that what? And this is what? Spiritual. This is what we're reading is physical as well as to what we're going to read spiritual also. Alright? So we see is that what? Psalm 104 verse 2 said that who covers, is that my phone? Yeah. Oh, really? That's fun. Alright, so it says, in verse 2 it says, Psalms 104 verse 2, it says, who's covered ourselves with light and with a garment, who stretched out the heavens like a curtain. Alright, let's go over to Psalms 139. Psalms 139, and we're going to be in and out of Psalms 104 because it actually coincides not only in Psalms 104, but we got many other locations that coincide with the creation as well. But, we're going to be in and out of Psalms 104. Alright? So Psalms 139. Psalms 139, and let's pick up at verse 11. Psalms 139 and verse 11. And let's deal with this a little more just to prove that, he's clothed in light. So let's look at it a little bit more. Psalms 139 and verse 11. When you go ahead and read it.
If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me.
Go ahead.
Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day.
You see that? The night, it shines as the day. So in other words, there's no night amongst God. God himself is clothed in light. So in other words, night don't exist with God. And this is literal, not spiritual, because keep reading, bro.
The darkness and the light are both like
so this is literal or physical, because according to 1 John chapter 1 and verse 5, I think, it says that there is no darkness in God at all. None whatsoever. So this is why we can understand that this is talking about physical. Letting you know that hey, the darkness and the light are both the light to God. Meaning darkness don't exist with God because what? He's clothed in light. That's what we're dealing with. Let's go a little bit further though. Now let's look at the spiritual side of it. And we're still dealing with day one, which is 1,000 years unto man, but 1 day unto the Lord. Alright? So we still dealing with day one of the creation. So now let's go to the spiritual side of it. Let's go here to Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. You get it, bro? Go ahead and read.
I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast arise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 7 horns, and upon his horn 10 crowns. And upon his head is the name of blasphemy.
So we're looking at end time prophecy. We're looking at the fourth dynasty of the Gentile nations, which is referring to Rome. So see is what? Rome is standing up of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Sea would be the people. Alright? So we're seeing Rome come into an existence. But what is in verse 2 though?
And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority.
So we're looking at the whole dynasty. From Babylon to the Medes and the Persians to the Greek, now to Rome. We're looking at all of them in verse 2. Alright, you can go back and read that in Daniel chapter 7 or Daniel chapter 4. That's what we're looking at. But we came here for skip down verse 5 and read that.
And it was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
Verse 6.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven.
So you see that, the Pope of Rome or the religious ruler of this time, he's going to blaspheme everything that's God. Everything. That's what we just read in verse 6. He blasphemed against God, his name, his tabernacle, and everything that dwell in heaven. Alright, what is it in verse 8 though? Skip down and read that.
And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him.
See that? All that dwell upon the earth, they're going to worship this religious leader. That's who they're going to worship. But keep reading them.
Whose names were not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world.
So we see is that what? The Lamb, he was slain from the foundation of the world. Well, where's the foundation? We dealing with still in day one. Alright? Day one of the creation, we still dealing with this life. But what we're looking at Revelation chapter 13 and verse 8. And this letting you know is that what? This Lamb was slain from the foundation of the world. Meaning this plan or this idea to save man from death was already in the making. It was already here. Alright? So we see is that what? Verse 8 said, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Let's go over to John chapter 8. John chapter 8. And we're looking at the spiritual side of this light that we saw in Genesis chapter 1. Alright? So John chapter 8. And we're going to read one verse. John chapter 8 and verse 12. John chapter 8 and verse 12. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
Then spake Jesus unto them, saying, I am the light of the world.
So now we see Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. The lamb slain from the foundation of the world is now saying what? I am the light of the world. Keep going.
He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness.
You see that? Now if you follow this light, you're not going to follow darkness. We're looking at the spiritual aspect of it now. Because if you follow the lamb who was slain from the foundation of the world, you won't walk in darkness. Right? Keep going though.
But shall have the light of life.
So you're gonna have the light of life, but we see is that what? Jesus is the light of the world. The Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. Let's go to John chapter 1 real quick. John chapter 1. And let's pick it up at verse 1. John chapter 1 and verse 1. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
In the beginning was the Word.
Go ahead.
And the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
So we see is that you have the Word and you have God. Jesus would be the Word of God, the spokesman of God here. Alright? But it also said in the bottom of that verse, and the Word was God. So we're dealing with two that's in the Godhead. Alright? But what it say in verse 2 though?
The same was the beginning with God.
Verse 3.
All things were made by him.
You see that? All things was made by Jesus. Word. You know, this is who was dealing with the creation in the very beginning. Alright? So we see is that what? It says all things were made by him. What?
And without him was not anything made that was made.
Verse 4.
In him was life, and the life was the light of men.
You see that? In Jesus was life. But guess what this life was? It was the light of man. See, we see that what? According to Revelation 13, this lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world, he was the life of man. He was that light that we dealing with still on day one. Alright? So we see is that what? It says in verse 4, in him was light, and the light was the light of men. Verse 5.
And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not.
You see that? Darkness, it didn't comprehend the light. You know, because darkness wanted to remain in its wickedness. That's why it says comprehend, meaning like you didn't want to receive the light. You know, according to what John 3:18, I think, it's talking about the condemnation of those that love the darkness and rather not want to reprove their deeds by light. Alright? But we see is that it says what? And light shined in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not. Skip down to verse 9 and read that, bro.
That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world.
Verse 10.
He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not.
You see that? Jesus is the one who was in the world, but guess what? He also made the world as well. Skip down to verse 29 and read that.
The next day John seeth Jesus coming unto him, saying, Behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world.
You see that? This is the purpose of why the Lamb had to be slain from the foundation of the world. He had to be slain because what? He was to take away the sins of the world. Alright? So we see that what? On day one, we see that, what I do with that show? It's right here. In day one, alright, we see is that the Lamb, aka Jesus, had to die. Died. Alright? To remove sin. This is all in day one. Alright, let's go a little bit further though. Let's go over here to Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5. And we must understand, you know, how brilliant, you know, the guy here was. Like, they already had a solution. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they already had one in the corner pocket. Because they understood that, man, we're going to fall. They were going to drop ball. You know what I mean? So guess what? Through man dropping the ball, we already got a plan in play for it. All right? And that's what we deal with. That's what we're looking at on day one. See, right out the gate, like God didn't, you know, get to day 4 or day 5 and be like, hey, you know, let's come up with this plan. Nah, they came up with this plan immediately at the very beginning of the creation because they already knew. Like that God created it. So God knows the thoughts of man. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, all right, guess what? I'm going to lay out a safety net out there. You know what I mean? So the safety net is going to be for the benefit of your good. And that's what we're dealing with still on day one. So we see is that day one, evening and morning is what determined the day. And we see is that according to man, this day is a literal 1,000 years. And on that day, we're looking at this light. And we see that what? The Lamb had to be slain from the foundation of the world. And then we also saw what John said in what? John chapter 1 and 29. You know, the Lamb of God that take away the sin of the world. All right, so now let's look at this Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Romans chapter 5, verse 1. Go ahead, read it, bro.
Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ.
So we see is that Jesus is our justification. You know what I mean? That's our faith. Verse 2.
Also we have access by faith into his grace, wherein we stand and rejoice in hope of the glory of God.
Skip down to verse 6 and read that.
For when we were yet without strength, in due time, Christ died for the ungodly.
So when we were without strength, when we was without Christ, you know what I mean? Because keeping the commandments couldn't justify us into the Father. We needed Christ or his blood to be shed in order for our sins to be removed, or even for us to be looked upon of the Father. That was our justification. So this is why we was without strength before he came and died. All right? What is it in verse 7?
For scarcely, for a righteous man will one die.
Go ahead.
Yet peradventure for a good man, some would even dare to die.
So we see that, you know, Christ came and died for the ungodly. You know, but we looking at like, shoot, me dying for a righteous man, I would probably reconsider that. You know, because I'm man. I'm flesh and blood. Like, my intent is like, man, I got a whole family, man. Like, me dying for you, I gotta look after my family. That would be my mindset. But Christ didn't think that. Nah, Christ came and died for the ungodly. Meaning, you know, the ones that's not doing his will. You know what I mean? The ones that's not even dealing with the commandments, because guess what? They got opportunity as well. You know what I mean? So he didn't just come and die for the Israelites. Nah, he came and died for mankind. That's what we see right here. It says, for scarcely for a righteous man will one die. Yet peradventure for a good man, some would even dare to die. But what does it say in verse 8 though?
But God commendeth his love toward us.
Go ahead.
In that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us.
You see that? We were still sinners, but Christ died for us. This is the plan that we're looking at on day one, you guys. Christ died for the sinners. What does it say in verse 9 though?
Much more then, being now justified by his blood.
This is how we get our justification. You know, we get our justification through the blood of Christ. You know what I mean? Not by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. I am not casting the law, statutes, and commandments away. What we're just reading is that couldn't justify you unto God, because we still broke the commandments. So now we need something more perfect, which is the blood of Christ. Now when you have them both together, this can take you into everlasting life. Alright? So we see is that what? It said in verse 9, much more then being now justified by his blood. Go ahead.
We shall be saved from the wrath through him.
Verse 10.
For if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son.
You see that? We was enemies to the Father. Like, we needed this day one. We needed it to take place, because guess what? If it don't occur, we still enemies unto the Father. There's no salvation. So we needed this day one to play out the way it did at the very beginning of the creation. Because what? It said what? In verse 10, for if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son. This is how we was reconciled by the blood of Christ. Because before that, we were enemies. Keep going though.
Much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life.
So now we're going to be saved by his life. Let's go over to 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And let's pick up at verse 3. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 3. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
Go ahead.
In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not.
Go ahead.
Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them.
You see that the God of this world has blinded the ones that don't even want to deal with the truth. That's what we read of the gospel. You know, that's what it says in verse 3. But if our gospel hid, it's hid to them that are lost. You know, they are lost because of what? God of this world. But we see at the bottom of that, we see that at the bottom of verse 4, it says, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Because now, you know, if Jesus or his word or, you know, all of that shine unto the ones that are lost, guess what? They'll begin to, you know, want to start following the law, statutes, and commandments of God. They'll start to want, you know, work towards receiving salvation. That's what would occur. But sit down to verse 6 and read that.
For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness.
So we looking at Genesis chapter 1. Right here in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 6. This is what we're reading right now. And it's saying what? For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, go ahead,
has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ.
So this is our knowledge. So this is how we have knowledge on the Father, through Jesus Christ. So we see is that what? It says God the Father, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts. This is who we deal with in verse 6. So now we got this knowledge, or we understand what salvation is truly all about. We understand is that Jesus is the light of the world. So in order for you to, you know, be saved, you have to reprove your evil deeds and come up under his blood. Because that's what we read in Romans chapter 5. We saw that in Romans chapter 5, through his blood your life shall be saved. Alright? Let's go a bit further though. Let's go over to Psalms 97. Psalms 97, and let's take a look at, you know, this light. we still dealing with this light, and you know it has spiritual implications on it. You know, it's not a physical light, because we're gonna see inside of the creation. We're gonna get to the physical light, and we're gonna understand what the physical light was set here for mankind. All right, but right now we're just looking at this plan that God them had to save man from death. So let's look at this Psalms 97, and let's pick it up at verse 9. Psalms 97, verse 9. When you get it, go ahead and read.
For thou, Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all gods.
So God is exalted above all gods. All right? There's no God like the true and living God. He's exalted above all gods. Verse 10.
Ye that love the Lord, hate evil.
So if you love the Lord, you hate evil. You know what I mean? Because what? You have been reproved by light. So now you walk in that light, you don't even fellowship with darkness. You know, the fellowship they're talking about is, you know, that's all your company is amongst you. Like, yeah, we're going to fellowship with darkness because what? At our jobs, at our children's schools, you know, at grocery stores, you know, even family members. So yeah, we're going to fellowship with that. But, you know, what we're talking about is that's all your company is. You know, that's all who you like to roll with. Nah, because eventually that darkness will dim your light. All right? So we see is that what? It says, ye that love the Lord hate evil, and what else?
He preserveth the souls of the saints.
You see that? The Lord is the one that preserves the soul of the saints. Why? It's because you hate evil. That's what the Lord said about Job. You know, he was an upright man, one that skewed evil. All right? So we see is that even the Lord is saying what? He preserved the souls of his saints. Meaning you guys, you know, he's preserving your souls because what? You love the Lord, therefore you hate evil. Keep going. What else it say?
He delivered them out of the hand of the wicked.
Go ahead.
Light is sown for the righteous.
You see that? Now this light is sown, or you know, what you reading from this light is even within this world. You know, you stay strong in the faith, the Lord will deliver you through it. You know what I mean? That's what you get from what? Dwell in the light. So we see is that what? In verse 11, it says, light is sown for righteousness. Go ahead.
And gladness for the upright in heart.
Verse 12.
Rejoice in the Lord, ye righteous, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness.
Let's go over here let's go back to Genesis. All right. So we see in day one, we see that what? We learn is that day one, what determines it? We see evening and morning. All right. We see is that a day consists of 1,000 years unto man. That's what we saw in 2 Peter chapter 3. We also saw is that this light was salvation unto man. We see is that, you know, the lamb slain from the foundation of the world is who? Jesus. And through his blood, now you can receive remission of sins. That's what you can receive. But we see is that in this same day, which is day one, is that this light, if you keep living long enough in the light, you'll receive everlasting life. Alright? So this is day one. And again, you know, like I said, we got a chart on the back of your handout, and we can even deal with that chart. But we're looking at the creation, and we see is that on day one, all this took place. You know what I mean? This is what all took place, right? So I'm going to erase the board, and I'm going to go to the next day. Alright? So we're going to pick it up at Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to look at day 2. And this day right here, you know, it'll get interesting for the kids because, you know, even for the adults as well, because now they can actually utilize their handout and start to decorate it with what occurred within the creation of God. Alright? So let's go to Genesis chapter 1, and let's pick it up at verse 6. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 6. Go ahead and read it, bro.
And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters.
Go ahead.
And let it divide the waters from the waters.
So we see that first day was dealing with light. So of course we're dealing with day 2 at this point. And it's going to tell you that in verse 8. So I'm just going to go ahead and write it on the board. Day 2. Day 2 consists of how many years, you guys?
1,000.
Okay.
1,000.
All right. So day 2 lasts 2,000 years. All right. So we see is that what? It says, and God made the firmament, verse 6. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of waters, and let it divide the waters from the light. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just draw a line right here. I'm going to draw a line right here, and that line is going to represent the firmament. All right? That's what that line is going to represent. All right? What it say in verse 7, bro?
And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament.
So we see is that the firmament, it says what? It has waters. So I ain't going to, do no artwork up here. I'm just going to spell it out. Kids, y'all can get creative if y'all want, and y'all can do the artwork. All right? So we see is that it says it was waters under the firmament and waters above the firmament. The firmament is what divided the waters. That's what we read in verse 6, right? Mm-hmm. It says, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Read that verse 7 again.
And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so.
Verse 8.
And God called the firmament heaven.
All right, so now we got a name on this firmament, and it's called heaven. All right, so we see is that this line represents the firmament, but now we just saw in Genesis chapter 8, that the firmament is now called heaven. All right, so we see is that what? We see is that heaven is what is dividing the waters from the waters. So even when you go and take a look outside, you look at the sky, you see the airplanes, the birds, that would be considered heaven. Alright? So that heaven is what's dividing the waters. So we got waters above the firmament and waters beneath the firmament, or the heaven. What does it say in verse 9?
And it was so.
I'm sorry.
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
So we see is that day 2, God made the firmament, which is heaven, divided the waters. So we got waters above the heaven, and we got waters beneath the heaven. All right. Let's go into day 3 now. Day 3, I'm sorry. Let's go into Psalms 103 real quick. Psalms 103. Psalms 103. And let's pick up at verse 19. Psalms 103, verse 19. Go ahead and read it.
The Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all.
Go ahead.
Bless the Lord, ye his angels, that excelleth in strength, that do his commandments, hearkening to the voice of his word.
So we see is that even in the beginning, right? It said, verse 2, it said, the Spirit of the Lord moved upon the water. What was that Spirit? That Spirit was these angels. You know what I mean? Like God sent forth his word, and these angels were the ones that was working on his behalf. Nah, the angels, and I gotta keep making the disclaimer, nah, the angels did not create day 1, which was that light. Nah, that was an idea or a plan that the God family came up with to deliver man from death. Alright? So what we looking at in this Psalms 103, we seeing that what? It says the Lord hath prepared his throne in heaven, and his kingdom rule over all. Bless the Lord, ye angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments. Alright? That's what these angels are to do on behalf of this creation. Let's go over to Psalms 104. Let's look at it some more. Psalms 104. And let's pick it up at verse 3. Psalms 104 and verse 3. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
Who laid the beams of his chambers in the water?
So we see that these beams, it said, well, who laid the beams of his chambers in the waters? Go ahead.
Who maketh the clouds his chariot?
So we see is that what? We got beams on the water. And we just say that this is, the beams These would be beams, you know. God's chambers would be on top of the beam, like a house. But we see that this is laid on top of the waters. Alright, what else it say?
Who walketh upon the wings of wind.
So it says he make the clouds his chariots, and he walk on the wings of wind. Alright, but what is in verse 4?
Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire.
So we see is that what? He maketh his angels minister his spirit and flaming fire. What is it in verse 5?
Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever.
Go ahead.
Thou coverest it with the deep as with the garment. The water stood above the mountains.
So we see is that the waters, they stood above the mountains. Right? That's what we're dealing with. We dealing with that the water stood above the mountains because at this point, the earth is still covered in water. Yeah, we saw in day 2 is that the firmament divided waters, but the earth itself is still covered in water. We just got a separation now. We have 2 bodies of water now. Alright? So we see that what? In verse 6, it says, thou covered with the deep as the garment, the water stood above mountains. What else is in verse 7?
At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away.
So at the rebuke or at the voice of the Lord, you know, these waters fled away. And that's what we're going to look at in day 3. Alright? So we see is that what? It says, at thy rebuke they fled, at the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. Verse 8.
They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys, unto the place which thou hast founded them. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over.
You see that? The Lord has set a bound. So now we're even going to look at the bound. And we're going to see is that what? The Lord set up a bound that the water can't pass. So we see is that now the Lord has set up the waters that they can't pass certain bounds. Alright? What else is in verse 9? I'm sorry. Skip down to verse 30 and read that.
Thou sendest forth thy spirit.
So we still looking at that spirit in verse 2 of Genesis chapter 1. And Lord said what? Speaking through the mouth of David, what? Thou sendest forth thy spirit, and what else?
They are created.
So they are created. And what they do?
And thou renewest the face of the earth.
You see that? This is what their job was. You know, they took part in creation, meaning they are the ones that, you know, God commanded his word. The angel went forth and did the work. You know what I mean? So it says what? And thou renewest the face of the earth. Alright? So we still in day 2. Let's go over here let's go now back to Genesis chapter 1. I would ask the kids how they get, but they so intolerant. They probably ain't even paying me no mind. I should have caught y'all attention at the beginning. Be them kids, man. They just be that cool though. We always shoot the big kids, so we understand. Alright, so let's go back to Genesis. And I'll leave day 2 up there because day 2 and day 3, they're gonna complement each other. Alright? So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1, and let's pick it up at verse 9. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 9. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place.
Go ahead.
Let the dry land appear. It was so.
So we see is that now, in day 3, and we're just going to throw day 3 down here at the bottom. Day 3 consists of what, 3,000 years? Mm-hmm. Okay. Y'all with me? So day 3, we see is that now, it says, and God called the dry land, I'm not too far. Yeah. You on verse 9. Yes. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. Read verse 10.
And God called the dry land earth.
Go ahead.
And the gathered together of waters called the seas. And God saw that it was good.
So we see is that what? God pulled the earth from the water. Alright, so God, he actually pulled the earth from out of the water. So now we have what? Dry land. This dry land is now called earth. Because now, at this point, you know, the water is no longer covering the earth. So we have dry land, which is earth. And we see is that the Lord separated the waters and made seas. I should have just started drawing. I'm gonna start drawing. I'm tired of doing all this writing. I'm just gonna start drawing. So this is the dry land.
Let's see what you need.
Hey, you know I have a little artwork in me, but I'm trying to think of. Alright. We're looking at the dry land. Supposed to be American. You know,
We got you.
this is the water. I know this is the water that's covering the earth, all surrounding the earth. So we see earth, we see water. So that's what it said. What? In verse 10, it says, and God called the dry land earth, and gathered together the waters, and called the seas. And God called the water, gathered together of the waters, called the seas, and God saw that it was good. Verse 11.
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind.
Go ahead.
Whose seed is in itself.
You see that? The seed of the tree is in itself. So it says what? It says yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is itself. Go ahead.
Upon the earth.
So we see is that we got trees. That's in the water tree. We got trees on the earth. Alright, keep going.
And it was so.
Go ahead.
And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good.
Verse 13.
And the evening and the morning were the third day.
So we see is that day 3, we have earth now. Alright, you got all that? You see it? Even though it might be terrible. I might go back to writing. So that's what I might do.
Yeah.
But we see that the earth was brought forth from the water on the third day. Alright? So we saw on day 2, the firmament divided the waters from the waters, which is heaven. Now on this earth, we have waters surrounding the earth on day 3. Also trees, that also came along in day 3 as well. You know, grass, you know, herbs, things to that effect, all occurred on day 3, right? So now, let's go back. Let me go to my paperwork real quick. Let's go back to, let's go to 2 Peter real quick. No, I'm sorry, let's go to Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 1 when you get it. Go ahead and read it, bro.
Does not wisdom cry?
Go ahead.
And understanding put forth her voice?
So we talking about wisdom. We talking about the wisdom of God here. Because, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll come here to this and they'll be like, see, God was created. Nah, this is talking about wisdom. That's it. So that's why verse 1 started out with, do not wisdom cry. And understand, put forth her voice. Verse 2.
She standeth in the top of high places, by the way of the places of the past.
Skip down to verse 29 and read that.
When he gave to the sea his decree that the waters should not pass his commandment.
You see that? Pass not his commandment, or the wisdom of God gave the decree until the waters not pass forth his commandment. Keep on.
When he appointed the foundations of the earth.
Verse 30.
Then I was by him, as one brought up with
We talking about wisdom. This is what was by God. Go ahead.
and I was daily as a light, rejoicing always before him.
Let's go over to 2 Peter now. 2 Peter chapter 3. So we see is that what? In verse 29 it says, when he gave to the sea his decree, that the water should not pass his command. You see how God is? Like God commanded the waters not to pass the decree that he commanded them. You look at tsunamis and things to that effect that take place within the world, natural disasters, as to what we call it. Like, God, of course, allowed them to pass the decree at that point. You know what I mean? But we see is that if God don't command it, then it's going to go forth. And that's what we can witness with the history. with natural disasters pertaining to water. You know, we can see is that tsunamis will wipe out a whole country. But that's all come from, okay, if God decides to allow it to take place, it went past the boundary because God allowed it to. Alright? So we see is that in what? Verse 29 it says, He gave to the sea His decree, that the waters should not pass His command. Alright, let's go to this 2 Peter chapter 3 now. 2 Peter chapter 3, and let's pick it up at verse 3. Hold on. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 3. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of His coming?
So we see that scoffers, you know, ones that are dwelling in darkness. You know, they like, man, where's the promise of His coming? Go ahead.
For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation.
This is what scoffers would think. This is the way of their thinking. You know, they like, man, where's the promise of His coming? Shoot, He ain't got here. Guess what? Everything that took place in the beginning of the creation is going to carry all the way out to the end. But what he said in verse 5 though?
It's saying, so verse 5, for this they willingly are ignorant of.
See that? They willingly are ignorant of. Because they think that, you know, since the fathers fell asleep, that everything is going to continue its course. Nah, they are. It says what? For this they willingly are ignorant of. Go ahead.
That by the word of God, the heavens were of old.
You see that by the word of God, the heavens, you know, they were of old, or they was kept preserved of old. Keep going though.
And the earth standing out of the water.
You see that? So we see, I'm sorry, go ahead and read the rest of that. I'll cut you off. Go ahead.
No, all right. Verse 5.
Read again. The bottom of it.
Okay.
The earth.
And the earth standing out of the water and in the water.
So we see is that the earth stand out of the water and in the water. This is what we saw in day 2. You know, we saw in day 2 the heavens, divided the waters from the waters. But in this waters down here, we seen is that what? The earth came forth from waters. So this is why Peter is giving you an account as to what? The waters or the earth standing in the waters and out of the waters. Because partial of it was in the waters. And it stands out of the water. So we see that what? According to Peter, he's giving the same account. Alright, but let's go back. Let's go back to Job chapter 27. Job chapter 27. We still dealing with day 3, which consists of 1,000 years. So this would be on your chart, the 3,000 year of the creation. 1,000 years unto man, unto Lord. This is really just day 3 unto Him. All right. So let's look at Job 27, and we're gonna pick it up at verse 7. But let's read verse 1, just to understand, you know, what's going on within this chapter. Job 27 and verse 1. Go ahead and read.
Moreover, Job continued his parable and said,
Go ahead.
As God liveth, who hath taken away my judgment, and the Almighty who hath vexed my soul.
Go ahead.
All the while my breath is in me, and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils.
Hold on. Nah, that ain't it. I was doing the wrong thing. I was typing this up at 3 o'clock in the morning, guys. So, let me go back to my original notes. Yes, Job. That's what I don't know, right? Job 27. I probably meant. Hold on, what was that? First, so that my enemies. Nah, that ain't what I want. I think it's Job 37. Well, I'm gonna find it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. There we go. I don't know how I got that in. Yeah, it's Job 26. One chapter to the left. Yeah, Job 26. So if y'all want to, scratch that and put it, scratch that. You can just actually put Job 26 to the 27. Yeah. So Job 26, and let's read verse 1. Job 26 and verse 1. Go ahead and read it, bro.
But Job answered and said, How hast thou helped him that is without power? How savest thou the arm that hath no strength?
So this is Job. Job is, questioning God as like, man, how hast thou helped him without power? How savest thou the arm that have no strength? Verse 3.
How hast thou counseled him that hath no wisdom?
You see that? Like, Lord, how do you counsel the one that has no wisdom? Go ahead.
And how hast thou plentifully declared the thing as it is?
Get down to verse 7 and look at the answer that God is going to give Job. Go ahead.
He stretcheth out the north over the empty place.
Go ahead.
And hangeth the earth upon nothing.
You see that? Like, Job, I'm the one that stretch out the north over the empty place. And guess what? I hang the world on nothing. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I do. Like, nah, Job, you sitting here, how you can figure that one out? You know what I mean? Like, I can't even figure that one out. As you look at the world, how it hangs, like science, they'll give you theories. You know what I mean? That's what they'll give you, but God is absolute. Letting you know is that, look here, he stretched out the north over the empty place and hang the earth upon nothing. Skip down 13 and read that.
By his spirit he hath garnished the heavens.
You see that going all the way back to what these spirits did, on day one. When it said the spirit of the deep went up on the waters, we went all the way back to that, and it said what? But his spirit, he had garnished the heavens. Meaning like he don't make the heavens, his spirit. Keep going.
His hand hath formed the crooked serpent.
And his hand had formed the crooked serpent. That, that's just talking about serpents. That's in the sea. Yeah, that's all it's talking about. But let's go a bit further though. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. So we see is that day 2 consists of 2,000 years. Evening and morning is what determined the day. But in day 2, we see is that what? The firmament, which is the heaven, divided the waters. So we see is that you have water on top, you have water beneath. But on day 3, God brought the earth out of the water. So now the earth is called earth now. And what's around it is the body of water, which is the seas. All right, so this all occurred on day 3, the earth coming out of the water. Day 2, God divided the waters by the firmament or the heaven. So now we're going into day 4. So now we actually better take a look at the literal sun. The literal moon and stars. And I say that is because day 1 was not the literal moon or sun. Day 1, as to what we all understood, was salvation or plan or God's operation to deliver man from death. That was the light that we dealt with, which the gods, they do clothe themselves in light, a literal light. Because you can go and read in Revelation 22, when they return, there's going to be no need of the sun or the moon. You know what I mean? So they are the ones that's going to actually be light up the earth. And those that die right in Christ, we're going to be like the stars of heaven, according to Daniel chapter 12. All right? So now let's go and look at the day 4, which is an interesting day because now, for our time, we can, somewhat kind of throw a 24-hour clock in there now. You know what I mean? Even though we're still dealing with thousands of years inside of the creation unto man. But we can now look at what this sun, moon, and stars are going to do for us. So I'm going to erase this. So like I said, on the back of your handout, if you want, you could draw it in. If not, you could, stay tuned as to what we're dealing with on the board. But I think I'm going to go back. Nah, you know what? I can draw a star. Moon. And sun, I can do that. So I might draw these out. So let's go ahead and pick it up at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. Go ahead and read it, bro.
God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years.
So we see that day 4, because verse 14 is going to let you know what day it is. So day 4 is 4,000 years unto man, or the 4,000 years. So we see heaven we see, it says what? The heavens. It says, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, divide the day from the night. So now, what we dealt with in day 2 and what we dealt with in day 3, we dealt with the heaven that's on earth, which makes up heaven. Understand the Bible, you have 3 heavens. You know what I mean? You got the heaven that's here on earth. You got the heaven that you look at when you see the airplanes, the birds, and all that flying. And then you got above that where the Father, Son, and the angels dwell at. That would be considered heaven. But what we're looking at right now pertaining to the sun and the moon, we're looking at the heaven that's above the earth. All right? So we see that we're going to place the sun and the moon. Well, you know what? We ain't even got there yet. Read verse 15.
And let there be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
Go ahead.
What's up?
Verse 15.
And God made 2 great lights. The greater light to rule the day.
So we see is that the great light that's going to rule the day would be kids. Kids. Y'all listen? What rules the day, or what gives you light on earth when you go outside? How do you know that it's light out? What gives you light? Okay. Okay. So we see is that what? On the 4th day, we see is that the sun. It says, and God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, so we know that's the sun. What else say?
And the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
So what light rules at night, kids? Okay. What you got? Okay, good job. All right. So we see is that the moon. Yeah, that's the crescent moon, right? So we see that's the moon. So this sun rules the day. Still like a lot. And this moon rule night. Alright. And stars also. He made stars also. Alright. This is what's in the firmament above the earth. Alright. Keep going though, bro.
Verse 17. And God gave them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
You see that? God saw that it was good. But what we saw in verse 14, it says what? He gave these lights in the firmament for signs, for seasons, for days and years. So even, utilizing the moon itself, 12 moons, or sometimes 13, it can give you a year. You know what I mean? But even within the new moon, month just means new moon, or it's a new month. But we're looking at what? Even the Lord said they're going to be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. These signs that are in the firmament. The sun, the moon, and the stars. 7 suns give you a week. But we see that on the 4th day, we're looking at how God put light in the firmament. All right. So we see is that what? It says the sun is going to rule the day, the moon is going to rule the night. What does it say in verse 18? I know you're ready. Read it again.
And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
And God saw that it was good. Let's go over here to Psalms. Yeah. 19. I'm sorry.
And the evening and morning were the 4th day.
Let's go to Psalm 74 then. Psalm 74. Because even, with the moon, the sun and stars, now you got light on this earth. Now, man can till the earth. Because this gives you help with your agriculture. You know what I mean? Like, these signs that are in the firmament, they give great help to the farmers. They need this in order for your crops to harvest or grow. You need this. So we're going to look at, in this creation, all of this was designed for man. You know what I mean? Like, all of this. Like, we're going to see is that, like, hey, if we don't have no sun or no moon, like, we're going to be starved. It's kind of like the sun kind of gives some type of energy. It brings your morale up. What is it like? Vitamin C? Right, you know what I mean? Like that's good to the body. But at the same time, like if you don't have the sun and the moon, like you don't have certain vegetables. You know, even the animals, they can't operate correctly. You know, just because they need this in order to operate. But we see that God on day 4, he's setting all this up. It's kind of like God is building a house for man. You know, and we saw that he divided the waters from the waters. We saw that he brought the earth from the waters. We also saw is that what? What occurred on day 3? Anybody? Huh? Okay, so he brought the dry land from the earth. So now we're looking at day 4. So now in day 4, he's setting up signs that's in the firmament, the sun and the moon and the stars. So now let's look at Psalm 74. Psalm 74, and let's pick up at verse 16. Psalm 74 and verse 16. I'm doing real good too. I ain't going too bad. See, I thought for the scripture we keep you at 5 o'clock. Psalm 74. Psalm 74. And let's pick it up at verse 16. Go ahead and read it, bro.
The day is thine. The night also is thine.
You see that? Both. Like the day and the night. It says 16. It says, wow, I'm all over the place. There we go. It says, the day is thine. The night also is thine. Go ahead.
God has prepared the light and the sun.
So we see that the Lord has prepared the light. That would be the moon. And the sun. That's what the Lord has prepared. What does it say in verse 17?
God set all the borders of the earth.
So God is the one that set up all the borders. You know, he's the one that did all this. Who else?
God has made summer and winter.
So this is how you get summer and winter, dealing with these signs that are in heaven. You know, that's how you get your seasons. That's what we saw in Genesis, what? Chapter 1 and verse 20, if I'm not mistaken. He said they're going to be for signs, seasons, days, and years. This is how you get your seasons, based upon the sun, the moon, and the stars. So we see is that what? In verse 17, it says, thou hast set all the border of the earth, and thou hast made summer and winter. Let's go over here to Psalms 136. Psalms 136. Psalms 136. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead and read.
Oh, give thanks to the Lord,
Go ahead.
for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever.
So God's mercy is what endure forever. So you got to realize that if you are here today, living amongst the living, that's mercy unto God. That's mercy from God. Because you got to realize, like, you had a lot that didn't wake up today. You know, they didn't fall up under the mercy of God. So we see is that what? It says, oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endure forever. Skip down to verse 6, read that.
To him that stretcheth out the earth above the waters.
You see that? He stretches out the earth above the waters. Go ahead.
For his mercy endureth forever.
Keep going, verse 7.
To him that made great lights, for his mercy endureth forever.
All of this is mercy, because if we don't have any of this, we can't function. Truly, this is why understanding, man is going to come 2 days later after this. But this is all for our great benefit. This moon, sun, and stars, this is for our great benefit. But guess where it came from? It came from mercy. That's where it came from. So we see is that what? It says, to him that made great lights, for his mercy endure forever. Verse 8.
The sun to rule by day, his mercy endureth forever.
Go ahead.
The moon and stars to rule by night, his mercy endureth forever.
Let's go over here to back to Genesis. I'm sorry, let's go to Psalms 104. Psalms 104. And let's pick it up at 19. And we still dealing with day 4. And we see is that the sun, moon, and the stars, they give you, they're for a sign. They give you seasons, days, and years. Alright? What feast day we keep that we don't need the sun and the moon and the stars? I mean, we need it, but there's a feast that we keep that don't actually fall based on how the moon and the sun and stars operate. What feast day would that be, you guys? Y'all know?
Unlimited.
Hmm?
Say again.
I said, what feast day do we keep as to where we don't operate based on the moon, the sun, and the stars? We operate on it, but when you look at Passover and when you look at unleavened bread, they fall within a particular time of the year based on the moon. There you go. What is it? Pentecost. Right, because Pentecost is always going to be on Sunday. You know what I mean? It always fall on Sunday. It's called the Feast of Weeks.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, you know, when you look at Passover, it's not always going to fall on the same day at the beginning of the new year. Unleavened bread, you know, they all aren't atonement, trumpets, they all change up, but Pentecost is actually what? 7 Sabbaths plus 1 gives 50. Always going to be on Sunday. Always. All right. But now we're looking at Psalms 104, and we're going to read verse 19. Psalms 104, verse 19. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
He appointed the moon for seasons.
Go ahead.
The sun knoweth his going down.
You see that? He appointed the moon for seasons. See, yes, God created all, but he appointed the moon for the seasons. This is how you get to your new year. You know what I mean? Because of the moon, all the seasons. You know what I mean? So it says what? He appointed the moon for his seasons. The sun know his going down. But what is it saying in verse 20?
Thou makest darkness, and it is night.
Go ahead.
And all the beasts of the forest do creep forth.
So it says that now the beasts, they come forth and creep forth in the night. Go ahead.
The young lions roar after their prey and seek their meat from God.
You see that? God is going to give the lions their meat. Are all, carnivores. The Lord is the one that feeds them. But this occur at night. Go ahead.
The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together and lay them down in their dens.
So it says that now when the sun arises, they're going to lay themselves down in the den. Because at night they out on the prowl. But during the day, they sleeping. What else to say?
Man goeth forth unto his work.
So this is who come forth during the day. Man, yeah, now in our time, you have a graveyard shift. You know what I mean? But just think about it. Back in biblical days, you weren't out working at night. Because you heard some roaring in the woods. Like, nah, you at the house at light. You know what I mean? Because if you out work at night, dude, you might get taken out by a lion or a hyena, or whatever it was that was a carnivorous beast at that time. You was at the crib where light was at. So that's what we dealing with. I understand in 2018, we work, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. That's what we dealing with today. But, just think about, back in biblical days, that probably wasn't the case. You know what I mean? But we just look at the operation of the sun and moon. That's what we're looking at. So we see that at the moon, the animals, they out and about prowling, hunting. So when the moon go down and the sun come up, now they ain't there sleeping. But man, we out working about. What else say?
And to his labor until the evening.
So we see is that when he laboring until the evening. Verse 24.
O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom thou hast made them all. The earth is full of thy riches.
The earth is full of the Lord's riches. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1 now. Genesis chapter 1. And we just tracking the creation, brothers and sisters. And we just tracking the creation. And we just looking at God's operation. And we're going to see within inside of this creation how God set up a plan, so that man, they got to go and work just like the Lord did by his creation. What we're looking at the works of the Lord's hand. That's what we're looking at throughout the creation. So now let's pick it up in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 20. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 20. Go ahead and read it.
And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life.
Go ahead.
And the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven.
So we see now, keep reading, verse 21.
And God created great whales.
So we see is that now, what? On day 5, which is the 5,000th year for man, we see is that now we got the great whale. Oh, we got, hey, I can really draw now. I'm just, this board, I can show you some work in my phone. I'm not for real. See, I really, I'm just doodling right now.
I feel you, bro.
This will be a whale. This fence. Oh, okay. No, it don't matter. We talk about a whale, all right? And this right here, you know, this is in the water. So it says what? It says, and God created great whales and every living creature that moved, which the waters brought forth abundantly. So we see that, you know, fish, you know, all of that is in the water, all right? But he said that he also, what, had fowls in the air as well, right? So he had fowls that would be in the air, all right? So we see, we got our birds up here, all right? And this is day 5, all right? Keep going though.
After their kind, and everyone followed after his kind.
So we see that even according to what the dietary law, you got every stork after his kind, every eagle after his kind. So we're looking at, in creation, every whale after his kind. So you got a sperm whale, you got a blue whale, you got a humpback whale, whatever. They all are of the whale family. But they all came out what? They was all created within the water. So we see is that it says every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Go ahead.
God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply.
So he gave the animals a command. He told them to be fruitful and multiply. So we see is that now, you know, the animals are being fruitful and multiplying with on the earth. So we got them in the water, they multiplying. In the heavens, the fowls of the air, they multiplying. Keep going though.
Fill the waters and seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth.
Keep going.
And the evening and the morning were the 5th day.
So we see is that the evening and the morning is what consists, what determines the 5th day. Alright? So we see is that what? Great whales or fish out of the sea was created on day 5. Also fowls of the air. They was created as well. On day 4 we see is that what? The moon, the sun, and the stars is what gave us seasons, days, and years. You could throw your 24-hour clock in there because this is all going to be created for man. We understand is that this all consists of 1,000 years. But once we get to man, we're going to realize that now man got to do something else. You know what I mean? Man is going to have to work just like the Lord did as to what we read inside this creation. So we're looking at day 5. Now, let's get to day 6. Go ahead and read Genesis chapter 1 and on verse 24.
And God said, let the earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so.
Go ahead.
And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth.
So now we're looking at day 6. $6,000 years, and we're gonna get rid of the fish, and we're looking at what's on the earth now. All right, so we see is that the Lord brought forth cattle. That's what He got here on the earth now. All right, so it says, what verse you in, bro?
Verse 25. At the end of that.
Okay, read it again. Oh, read. Go ahead. Read from the end of where you at.
And God saw that it was good. Verse 26.
Go ahead.
And God said, let us make man in our image.
So now we see is that what? Beast of the field was created before man was created. The beast of the field and man was created on the same day. They was both created on day 6, or the 6,000 years. But we see is that God created cattle first, or cows, or sheep, whatever that's consists of cattle, or the beasts of the field. You know what I mean? Whatever it may be, lions, tigers, all of that was created the same day as man, but man was created after all of this for a great cause. Because man is going to rule over all of this. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be man's dominion. So now we see that day 6, we see is that now, you know, cows, sheep, beasts of the field, you know, they created. Now you're looking at man being created. What does it say, bro?
After our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea.
You see that? So now, man, am I on the way on?
No, you guys are pretty good.
Okay, man is created. and is going to have dominion. Dominion over everything on the earth. It's going to even have dominion over everything that's in the seas as well. It's also going to have dominion over the fowls of the air. You know what I mean? Like, this is all going to be up under the rule of man. You know, man can go in the ocean and catch the biggest sperm where they want. You know what I mean? That's the wisdom, or that's what God has put inside of man, because what? He got dominion over. You know, man can catch he can catch the lion, he can catch the tiger. This is how God set up his creation, man being over it, or dominion over it. Keep going.
Over the fowl of the air.
Go ahead.
And of the cattle, and over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth.
So we see that what? In verse 26, it says that what? And God said, let us make man in our image. So you know now man is created after the image of God. Not after his likeness. You know, because when you look at God, God is immortal.
Right.
You know, God is a spirit being. So the likeness, yes, God has eyes, ears, nose, hand, and feet. This is what God has, but that's why, you know, it says after his time. I'm sorry, it says after his likeness. That's why man was created after his likeness, but not after his kind. Alright? So we see is that the Lord said what? Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Alright? Read the bottom of, read verse 28. That's what we at, right?
Verse 27.
Alright, read 27.
So God created man in his own image. In the image of the God created he him. Male and female created he them.
So we see is that God created male and female, he, him. Verse 28.
And God blessed it, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth.
So we see the commandment went forth. The first commandment that God gave to man. He told man to be fruitful and multiply. That means have babies or replenish the earth. You know, that's the commandment that he gave unto the animals. He gave the same commandment unto man, to be fruitful and replenish the earth. Alright? So we see as man was created on day 6. Also, the beasts and cows and cattle was created for man. So we look at what? It says at the bottom of that, 28, it says, God blessed them. God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Go ahead.
And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. But to you it shall be from me.
So he says that what? Man, like, they was vegetarians, if that's what you want to call them. At this point, you know what I mean? Like, God gave them herbs of the field. You know, beasts went on the dish at this point. Meaning they were dining in on, you know, cattle of the field. You know, God gave them fruit or herbs to eat. Alright? That's what we see. Let's say in verse 31 though.
And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day.
So we see the creation of God, brothers and sisters. We see is that now in day 6, we got man on this earth. Right? So let's take a look at this man. Because man, and we ain't gonna jump too far. Let's look at what's next on the list. After God did after. But let's go a bit on Psalms 115. Psalms 115, because we see that what? God has done his completion of the creation and he did it with man. That's what it ended with. So let's take a look at Psalms 115 and let's get up at verse 13. Psalms 15 and verse 15. Go ahead and read it, bro.
He will bless them that fear the Lord,
Go ahead.
both small and great. The Lord shall increase you more and more, you and your children.
Keep going.
Ye are blessed of the Lord, which hath made heaven and earth.
You see that? The Lord is the one that made heaven and earth. So guess what? He said he will bless you. Verse 14 says the Lord will increase you more and more and your children. This is what the Lord will do unto you. He's the one that made heaven and the earth. Keep reading.
Even the heavens are the Lord's,
Go ahead.
but the earth hath he given to the children of men.
You see that? The Lord has given the earth to the children of men. This is what the Lord has done. He's gave the earth unto us. That's why we see is that man was what? Created on day 6. Man was created on day 6 after the beast of the field. Because now what we saw in Genesis is that what? Man is going to have dominion over all of God's creation. Let's go and look at it. Let's go and look at it over here in Psalms chapter 8. Psalms chapter 8. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Psalm chapter 8 and verse 1. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth,
Go ahead.
who hath set thy glory above the heavens.
You see that? He has set thy glory above the heavens. But we see is that when it started out with saying, O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in the earth. Verse 2.
Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings hast thou ordained strength because of thine enemy,
Go ahead.
that thou mightest still the enemy and the avenger.
Verse 3.
When I consider thy heavens and the work of thy fingers, and the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained.
See, the Lord is the one that ordained all this. Alright? But what is it in verse 4 though?
What is man, that thou art mindful of him?
So what is man? Like I'm the one that, created the heavens. I created the moon and the stars. This is what I ordained. So he's saying like, what is man? You know what I mean? Like that thou art mindful of him. Keep going.
And son of man, that thou visitest him.
Verse 5.
But thou hast made him a little lower than the angels.
So thou hast made us. Yeah, we can go and read this in Hebrews. It talks about Jesus as well. But guess what? What Jesus has got, it's going to be given unto us as well. Right? So even we are made a little bit lower than the angels. You know what I mean? It's because guess what's going to take on if we keep this word all the way at its coming? We're going to be considered sons of God. Alright? So what? We're going to have rule over the angels. So we see is that now, it says what? In verse 4, verse 5. For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Go ahead.
And hast crowned him with glory and honor.
Keep going.
Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands.
You see that? The Lord has set us up over the works of his hand to have dominion. Keep going.
Thou hast put all things under his feet.
Keep going.
All sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the field, the fowls of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passes through the paths of the sea.
So whatsoever passes through the path of the sea is under our footstool. We have dominion over. Verse 9.
O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth.
How excellent is thy name in all the earth. Let's go over and look at Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2. And we're looking at God concluding his creation and what he did after that. Alright? Genesis chapter 2. And let's pick up at verse 1. Genesis 2:1. Go ahead and read.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished,
You see that? The heavens and the earth, they're finished at this point. Go ahead.
and all the host of them.
Keep going.
And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made.
So we see is that God ended his works which he had made. That's what we dealt with. We dealt with day 1 all the way to day 6. So God himself has what? It says, on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made. Go ahead.
And he rested on the seventh day
Go ahead.
from all his work which he had made.
So we see is that now the Lord has worked for 6 days. Alright? We can see that inside the commandment. So we see is that God himself worked for 6 days unto us for 6,000 years. So we see is that now God worked for 6 days, and on the 7th day, which would be the 7,000 year, God rested. So if God rested, why are we supposed to rest? You know what I mean? Like he just showed us a whole creation for 6 days. And then after he was done with his creation, he rested. So that's what I understand. If the Creator rests, he gave us a perfect example. We should take out him, right? Keep going, bro.
And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it.
So we're going to look at the 7th day. And we see is that the seventh day, God blessed it and sanctified it. That's how you spell sanctified.
C.
Okay, S-A-C?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. C got it, bro.
Alright. So we see is that the seventh day, sanctified the seventh day. What else it read, bro?
Because at it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
So we see is that God sanctified. Is that legible? Yeah. On the camera? Okay. So we see that day 7, which is the 7,000 year for man, God rested. God worked for 6 days or 6,000 years. Then he also on the 7th day, he sanctified, right? That's what we just read. Skip down to verse 7 and read that. Because now, ultimately, if man would have entered into this rest, what? We would have lived forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what would have ultimately took place if we would have entered into this rest. So now what we got to deal with, we got to deal with this chart on the back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we're going to look at how the Lord set up the boundaries according to man. The boundaries that he set up is so absolute that it shows you all the way to the 7th day for man that it's going to equal the number 12. We're going to read it. But we see is that what? On the 7th day of the 7,000 year, God rested and he sanctified the 7th day. Skip down to 7 and read that, bro.
And the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul.
Go ahead.
And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
So we see is that God himself is the garden of God because he makes up the tree of life. That's who he is. This is not a literal tree. This is Jesus himself in the garden of God with Adam and Eve. All right? But Satan himself is also there as well. The fruits is just symbolism, just using the fruits as symbols. But we can prove that Jesus was there, so was Satan. So we see is that what God took man from the dust, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and now man has became a living soul. So what we're looking at now, we just looking at the creation come to life now. We saw in Genesis chapter 1, we saw the creation being put forth. Now we're looking at the creation coming to life. So now we're looking at man, how he came to life, what? God breathed to his nostrils the breath of life and he became a living soul. So once he became this living soul, guess where he placed him at? Eastward in the garden of God. That's where he placed him at. But guess where he placed him amongst? He placed him amongst God himself, and Satan was there as well. And he had a choice. He had a choice to eat from the tree of life freely. And we're going to see what that would have brought him. Skip down to 16 and read that.
And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die.
So we see God gave man a commandment. After the commandment that he told me, be fruitful and multiply, we see that now he said, guess what? I command you not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So we understand is that, we're going to read it, but what we're dealing with, why didn't man enter into rest? That's what we're dealing with right now. We're looking at why did man enter into the Sabbath that we just read in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 2. Because we see is that what? That day God rested and what else he did? He sanctified it. So now we look at what caused man not to enter into that day. Alright. So we see is that 16 said, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Let's go on to chapter 3 now. Let's pick it up at verse 1. And let's look at the act behind why man wasn't able to enter into this rest. Genesis chapter 3, and let's pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead and read.
Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made.
Go ahead.
And he said unto the woman, yet as God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die.
So he told man, hey, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you're going to die. Alright? Keep going though.
And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
Go ahead.
And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
So she got deceived. She was deceived because what? You know, the conversation that Satan was bringing to her, she thought it was wise. You know, her mind was enticed. You know what I mean? That's what occurred. Like, she didn't eat a literal piece of fruit. She ate bad information. That's what she ate. And guess what occurred? Skip down to verse 9 and read that. Because something occurred with this bad information that was applied by Adam and Eve. And we're going to see that. But we're going to see on the flip side that guess what? If we don't receive this bad information, we're going to be granted something else. Alright? So skip down to 9 and read that.
The Lord God called unto Adam, and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself.
Go ahead.
And he said, Who told thee thou was naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree, whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat?
Verse 12.
And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat.
So he said, hey, the woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit, and I did. It was her fault. You know, that's what he was getting at. All right, but skip down to 19 and read that. Because we look at curses of the punishment that was handed out to Satan. You know, he now is locked in the chains of darkness. He can no longer appear before us as to how he appeared unto Adam and Eve. You know, that's what was put on him. He was going to eat dust all the days of his life. Then we see that what? The woman, you know, through sorrow and deception, you know, that's what was going to be put on her. Is that now having babies is going to be tough. All the way to the point where she can die. Now also, guess what? Her desire is going to be unto her husband. He's going to rule over her. That's what was handed to the woman. Now we're looking at what was handed to man. Because man is the one that put this death upon the table. See, yeah, Eve was the one that actually received the information. But guess what? Man set up man set up the man over the woman. That's what God did. He set the man over the woman because guess what? Man was here first. He gave Adam the commands. And Adam taught his wife. So Adam could rebuke that. So since he did it, now look at what we're dealing with. Read verse 19.
Verse 19. And the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. Out of it was thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
So this wasn't supposed to happen to man. Like God took man from the dirt, breathed into his nostrils, breath of life, he became a living soul. Guess what? Since you sinned against me, you going back to dirt where you came from. Now death is upon you. Now this is the totality of mankind. Is that now we are dealing with death. That's what we're dealing with. But skip down to verse 21 and read that. Go ahead.
And unto Adam also, and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins, and clothed them.
Go ahead, verse 22.
The Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and to take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever.
You see that? That's what would have occurred, you know, if man would have entered into this day. You know, he would have took hold of the tree of life. And he would have learned to have lived forever. So at that point, he would have became a god. You know what I mean? Whatever occurred after Adam, meaning Seth, you know, Noah, Methuselah, the sons of God, according to Luke chapter 1, hey, they probably would have became gods. If they wouldn't have eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So we see is that what? The Lord said, hey, nah, man has become one of us. To know knowledge, good and evil. Nah, we can't let him take hold of the tree of life and learn how to live forever. Alright, but read verse 23.
Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken.
You see that? Now he sent them forth. He was like, nah, you got to get out. You got to get out the garden of God. So he said what? He sent them, it says what? He sent forth sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. You see that? From whence he was taken. But let's say in 24.
So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life.
You see that? Now he kicked them out of the garden of God, and he put them cherubs around them. Alright? But he said what? He said in verse 23, therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. Alright? Let's go over to Deuteronomy 32. Let's deal with this chart on the back. Deuteronomy 32. Because we see that what? God sent the man to till the ground. So he had to go work. That's what he had to do. He had to go and put in work. Because guess what? The Lord put in work. See, from 21 jump, you're supposed to eat from the tree of life and live forever. That's what was supposed to occur. But we know that didn't take place. So now let's look at the Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32. And let's pick up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 32 verse 1. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain.
Go ahead.
And my speech shall distill as the dew, as a small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass.
Keep reading.
Because I will publish the name of the Lord, ascribe ye greatness unto our God.
So I will publish the name of the Lord. Publish how great the God of Israel is. And what is in verse 4?
He is the rock. His work is perfect. For all his ways are judgment, a God of truth and without iniquity. Just and righteous is he.
So just and right is he. He's a God without sin. He's perfect. Right? Skip down to verse 8 and read that.
Verse 8.
Yeah, verse 8.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
So he set the bounds. So we see is that the 7th day, God sanctified, right? But we know is that, according to what occurred in the Garden of God, man got cast out. So they wasn't able to enter into the 7th day that God had set. Because we see is that what the Lord cast them out and said, now go and work the field of the ground from which you came from. All right? So now we over here in Deuteronomy 32, and we see is that the Lord set up the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel, which would be 12. That would be the bounds of people. Verse 9.
For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance.
So we see that Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3. So we see is that the bound of the people is 12. Right? That's what we just read.
Chapter 2.
Yeah, Colossians chapter 2 and 16. Hold on, one second. Colossians chapter 2. And read one verse. Verse 16. You get it? Go ahead.
Let no man therefore judge you in meat,
Go ahead.
or in drink, or in respect of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath day.
So in other words, don't let nobody, judge you because you're not eating unclean meats anymore. Or don't let nobody judge you because you understand ain't nothing wrong with having a nightcap or having a little drink. It ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Don't be judged because what you keep the Lord's holy day. Mm-hmm. Or now you are partaking in the Sabbath, and we understand, the new moon brings in a new month. Mm-hmm. We even celebrate that as well here at the Israel Church of Jesus. What? We celebrate in the fast. You know what I mean? The month fast is associated with the new moon. So in other words, don't let nobody judge you of those things that you've decided to do to please God. I ain't got it in the handout, but read verse 17.
Which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
So all of this, we ain't going to deal with all the feast days. No, we're not going to deal with all of them. We're going to deal with the Sabbath. Because even the feast days, they point to a shadow of things come. Christ is the body. You know what I mean? But the Sabbath day is what we keep today, 52 times out the year. It points to a greater cause. This is why it's imperative for we to be in great attendance. Because we're going to see in this duration of the class is that, hey, if your work ain't mixed with faith, you're not going to enter into this rest. So like what we're doing right now is we're rehearsing the righteous acts. You know what I mean? By being here on the 7th day of the week. So we see that what? According to Colossians, it says that don't let nobody judge you because you've decided to take hold of the things that please God. But even talk about the holy days, the new moons, and the Sabbath days, they are a shadow of things to come. Let's go look at it. Let's go look at, because we see in Deuteronomy chapter 32, the boundary of man is 12. The boundary of man, that's why you got 12 months in a year. That's why you got 12 hours in a day, 12 hours in a night. You know what I mean? You got the 12 apostles. You got the 12 you got the 12 tribes of Israel. We even gonna look at how the heavens, how the kingdom on earth gonna be made. You know what I mean? So, in other words, what we finna deal with is this 12. All right. So let's go into Hebrews chapter 4. Hebrews chapter 4, and let's pick up at verse 1. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 1. When you get it, go ahead and read it, bro.
Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering to his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it.
Go ahead.
For unto us was the gospel preached.
So unto us was the gospel preached. Keep reading.
As well as unto them.
You see that? Unto them was preached the gospel as well. Go ahead.
But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith.
You see that? This is why, being in good attendance on Lord's Sabbath day is a greater call to your life. It's because you here in attendance. That means that your faith is mixed in with your works. Right. You know what I mean? That's what that means, because now you believe. Now you believe that, man, if I don't show up in class, man, the Lord gonna punish me. So you know what? I need to be in class. You know what I mean? That's how your mind is going to begin to operate. So we even see, even in Hebrews, we see is that what? The same gospel that was preached unto us, it was preached unto the forefathers. But guess what? It didn't mix with faith with the forefathers. Right? What is it, verse 3 though, bro?
For we which have believed do enter into rest.
Go ahead.
As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So
going back to the 7th day, I erased it, but going back to the 7th day, that's what the writer of Hebrews is referring you back to. He's letting you know, even though the works were finished from the foundation of the world, we still are talking about another rest. See, that rest that, we read in Genesis chapter 2, that was just letting you know is that God himself went into rest after he completed his creation. But what we're trying to do with, or what we can prove, is that there's another rest that we must enter into. Right? What it says in verse 4?
Where he spake in a certain place on the 7th day of the 7th day on this wise.
Go ahead.
And God did rest the 7th day from all his work.
You see that? He quoting what read in Genesis chapter 2. That's what he's quoting right here. He says what? But God did rest the 7th day from all his works. What else in verse 5?
And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore, where is it going?
Let's go over here. Let me see something here now. Yeah, let's go over to Psalms 95 now. Psalms 95. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna draw up the chart on the board. This is according to Genesis chapter 2. So on your handout, if you want to fill it in, on 7, on the chart, you can write in Genesis 2 because that's where God rested. You know what I mean? God rested, which would be the Sabbath. You know what I mean? So God, he hallowed and he sanctified that. So we can even write in on that 7, we can even write in God hallowed or sanctified. Sanctified 7 days. That's what God did on your chart. Alright? So we already know day 1 was the creation pertaining to the waters being separated by the firmament. Day 2, we saw that earth was brought forth, Day 1 was the light, salvation, which was Christ. That's what was day 1, the plan of the operation of God to deliver man from death. Day 2 is when the firmament divided the water from the waters. Day 3 is when the earth, was brought forth. Day 4 is when we got what? The signs in the firmament, which would be the sun, moon, and the stars. So now we're in day 5. This would be what? The herbs of the field, trees and things to that effect. Now, day 6, we see is that man was created on that day. So this would be man's first day. You know what I mean? Man's first day.
Yeah.
All of this is God. But this day right here is what started with man. Alright? We'll get to the other numbers eventually, but just to keep in mind, man, you can write on your chart, man, first day. And day 6. Alright? So let's go over here to Psalms 95 now. Psalms 95, because in Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 5 it says, and in this place they shall enter into my rest. Read verse 6. I got it on the next one. But read verse 6 go.
Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they too whom it was first preached enter not in because of unbelief.
Alright, so now let's go over to Psalm 95. Because it said what? Some didn't enter because of unbelief. Alright, so let's go take a look at it. Why did the forefathers enter? And what was it that they didn't enter? We're going to see that as well. So the same thing that occurred with forefathers in the wilderness, don't let it occur with us in our time. Alright, so let's look at Psalms 95 and let's pick it up at verse 1. I ain't in the way, I'm out of time. Okay. Go ahead, see. Brother C.
Verse 7.
Yeah, Psalms 95 and verse 7.
For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, and the sheep of his hand. Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your heart.
Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Psalm 95 and verse 7. I got it wrong. Yeah, I'm in 94. Start that over again. Psalms 95 and verse 7. Go ahead.
For he is our God,
Go ahead.
and we are the people of his pasture, the sheep of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart, as the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness.
Go ahead.
When your fathers tempted me, and proved me, and saw my works.
So in the provocation, it says what? Harden not your hearts in the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in wilderness. When the fathers, when they tempted the Lord and proved them. Keep going.
40 years long was I grieved with this generation. It said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways.
So they have erred in their heart because they don't know the Lord's ways. What he said in verse 11.
Unto whom I swear my wrath, that they should not enter into my rest.
So they're not going to enter into the Lord's rest. What rest is he talking about? Let's go over into Deuteronomy chapter 1. Deuteronomy chapter 1. And let's pick it up at verse 21. Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 21. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
Behold, the Lord thy God has set the land before thee.
Go ahead.
Go up and possess it, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath said unto thee. Fear not, neither be discouraged.
So the Lord said, man, go up and possess the land. What land is he talking about? The land of Canaan. So he told the children of Israel to go up and possess the land as the Lord God of thy fathers hath said unto thee. Fear not, neither be discouraged. Verse 22.
And ye came here unto me, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us, and they shall search us out land, and bring us word again by what way we must go up, and into what city we shall come. And the saying pleased me well. And I took 12 men of you, one of a tribe.
Skip down the verse, because I left some out. I told you, man, I was typing this up at 3 in the morning. Skip down to skip down to there we go. Skip down to 26 and read that.
Notwithstanding, you would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God.
And y'all can put this in y'all, because I left it out on the printout. So y'all can put it, it's actually 26. I left out 26 through 28, verse 32, and 34 through 35. Y'all can add all in if y'all need. Alright, but go ahead and start that over again.
Verse 26?
Yes, sir.
Notwithstanding, you would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God, and murmured in your tents.
You said they rebelled against the commandment of God. They didn't go up. They murmured in their tents and then what?
And said, because the Lord hated us, and he hath brought us forth out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us.
So he said, he said like what? You don't deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what they said. They didn't even go up. They rebelled against the commandment of God. They didn't even go up, and they said, man, shoot, we ain't going up, man. You mean to tell me you're going to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? That's their mindset. Skip down to verse 32. Well, read verse 28.
Whither shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our heart, saying these people are greater and taller than we.
Go ahead.
The cities are great and walled up to heaven. Moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims.
You said, like, they're discouraged. They got scared. Like, they ain't trying to go up. Skip down to verse 32 and read that.
Yet in this thing ye did not believe the Lord your God.
You see that? Like, they didn't believe the Lord their God. You know, this is the God. That's why the Psalm said what it said in Psalms 95. Like, you know, you've seen my works. I approved you. 40 years long was the Lord grieved his people. See, the Lord showed these people his works by opening up a whole sea. He opened up a whole sea and drowned the Egyptians and allowed Israel to walk through the Red Sea into the wilderness. So you mean to tell me they failed like that? Mm-hmm. Nah, it shouldn't. So we see is that what? In verse 32, it says, yet in this thing ye did not believe the Lord your God. Skip down to verse 34 and read that.
And the Lord heard the voice of your words, and was wroth, and sware, saying, surely there shall not one of these men of this evil generation see that good land which I swear to give unto your fathers.
You said, the Lord said, man, I swear, these people ain't going to see this good land. And the land that he's talking about, let's go read it, Joshua. Let's go to Joshua chapter 5. Joshua chapter 5. And we're looking at the Psalms 95. We just backing it up, just showing what all occurred. Why the Lord was angry with this nation of people. Why did he allow them to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years? Mm-hmm. We finna see it because we saw partial of it. We saw is that what? They didn't believe in the Lord. They didn't go up according to his commandment. They rebelled against it. That's what we saw in what? Deuteronomy. So the Lord said, and I swear in my wrath, these people, they ain't going to enter into the promised land. So let's look at Joshua chapter 5. And let's pick it up at verse 2. Joshua chapter 5, verse 2. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
At the time the Lord said unto Joshua, make you sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time.
You see that? Like they had to circumcise them again the second time. Someone like, they was already circumcised and they had to do it again. No, they wasn't circumcised according to the commandment that was given unto Abraham. Israel went against that. But we see is that what? Joshua, the Lord told him, hey, make these sharp knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. Verse 3.
And Joshua made him sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins.
Go ahead.
And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise.
So now even the Lord giving you the cause behind it. Go ahead.
All the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt.
So the Lord allowed them to wander around in the wilderness 40 years, and they died. But men that died off, they didn't circumcise their kids. That's what we're going to read. Go ahead, verse 5.
All the people that came out were circumcised. But all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised.
So Israel just started tripping. Yeah. You know what I mean? They just said, man, skip with what was given unto Abraham. Circumcise your child on the 8th day. Like they was tripping. You know what I mean? So it says what? Those that came out of Egypt, they were circumcised. But those that was born in the wilderness, like, no, they didn't circumcise. Keep reading.
For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord. Unto whom the Lord sware that he would not show them land, which the Lord sware unto their fathers that he would give us, a land that floweth with milk and honey.
You see that? A land that flowed with milk and honey. But the Lord said, man, I swear these people aren't going to enter into the land of Canaan. See, this is what the Psalms 95 was talking about. That's why in Hebrews chapter 4, it was saying that, hey, let us not be like our forefathers. Because what? The gospel was preached unto us just like it was preached unto them. But they didn't have faith mixed in with it. So now, they didn't get to enter into the promised land at their time. Don't let that be us in our time. That's what the Lord is getting at. So he says that what? It says in what? In verse 6, or the bottom of verse 6, the Lord swore unto their fathers that we would give us a land that flowed with milk and honey. Verse 7.
The children whom he raised up in their stead, them Joshua circumcised. For they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when they had done circumcising all the people, that they abode in their places in the camp till they were whole.
So until it was whole, until they healed up. All right, what's that in verse 9?
And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day.
So it wasn't no coincidence. You know what I mean? Because in order for you to take the Passover, you got to be circumcised physically. So it wasn't a coincidence how all of this was operating. You know what I mean? So we see is that what? They were circumcised and then they went into the Passover on the first day of the 14th month. I'm sorry, the first month of the 14th day is what I meant. So it says, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plain of Jericho. All right, so now we see is why the children of Israel couldn't enter into the promised land. This is why. So now let's go and look at us. All right, let's go and look at us pertaining to what Hebrews is going to tell us now. Hebrews chapter 4, and now let's pick it up at, we'll read verse 6 again. And we almost got to wrap it. Hebrews chapter 4. And let's pick it up at verse 6. Hebrews 4 and 6. When you get it, you can read it, bro.
Seeing therefore remaineth that some must enter therein, and they too whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief.
Go ahead.
Again, he limited a certain day, saying in David, Today, after so long a time, as it is said, Today, if you would hear his voice, harden not your hearts. For if Jesus had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day?
So we see is that what in verse 7, it's letting you know is that, hey man, the day you hear the Lord's voice, man, don't harden your heart. Because you can be like the example as to what we just read pertaining to the brothers that got killed in the wilderness for 40, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. So they died off. So you can fall after the same example. So in other words, don't harden your heart when you hear the words of the Lord in the day of your provocation. Don't harden it, because you can fall just like them. So he says that, he said what? And again, he let a certain day saying in David. So when he's saying David, he's just talking about what we read Psalms 95. That's what he's talking about. But then we see is that what? It says, for if Jesus had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? Another day, verse 9.
There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God.
You see that? Therefore remain a rest to the people of God. That's talking about in our time. There remain a rest. Verse 10.
For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his works as God did from his.
Go ahead.
Let us labor therefore to enter in that rest, lest any man fall after the example of unbelief.
You see that? So now, you know, you don't want to fall after the example of unbelief. That's what you don't want to do. Let's go over here to Mark. Mark chapter 2. Mark chapter 2. Mark chapter 2. And let's pick it up at verse 27. Mark chapter 2 and verse 27. Go ahead and read it.
And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath.
So understanding the Sabbath, the whole purpose in the Sabbath is made for man. You know, that's what Jesus said, was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It was made for you to rest. That's what it was made for. What is it in verse 28?
Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath.
So Jesus, Lord also of the Sabbath, is because on the seventh day in Genesis chapter 2, Jesus rested from his works and he hallowed it. This is why it's saying he's Lord of the Sabbath. Even all the way into what we got about to get into Revelation chapter 20, he's going to be over the Sabbath for 1,000 years as well. All right, so let's look at this chart a little bit more. So what we got so far, right? We got on the sixth day, man was created. That's what we have on the sixth day, right? On the seventh day, God rested. He completed his works and he rested, right? So on your chart, you have blank squares or rectangles up under the top chart. So up under the number 6, you can write first day for man. And then up under the seventh day, which is the Sabbath day of rest, you can write day 2. Because as to what we read, man didn't enter into the seventh day of rest. He didn't enter, so now you can write day 2. Alright? And then, going back under here, day 1, because now what we getting at man now, he has to work for 6 days or 6,000 years. Now he has to put in work because he didn't enter into the Lord's rest. So now he got to work just how the Lord did. You know what I mean? Like the Lord worked for 6 days and he rested on the 7th day. Now man got to work for 6 days and he's going to enter into the Lord's rest. That would be us.
Right.
All right. So now we're looking at day 1 is the 6th day because man was created on the 6th day. So that'll be day 1 for us. Day 2 for on the 7th day. Day 3. Now you can draw the other way already on the chart. But the rectangle that's up under day 1 would be day 3. Day 4. Day 5. Day 6. And I think we got one more, yeah. Day 7. Yep. Day 7. Alright. So now we see is that this is day 1 for man, day 2 for man, day 3 for man, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what we're looking at, right? So as you continue, as you count, where we at before we get in here?
Isaiah 14.
Y'all want me to count now? No, I don't want you to count now. Let's do Isaiah 14 real quick. Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14. You know what? Yeah, let's do the count. Because we finna go into the rest now. So now, when you do the count, right? On your chart, when you do the count, y'all can see? You can see, bro? Alright. So when you do the count, we see in Deuteronomy 32, right? We saw that in Deuteronomy 32, the boundary of man is according to the tribe of Israel, which was 12. That would be the boundary of man. So now when we do the count, we're going to say day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're not going to count 1 and 2. Why? It's because like they fall in 6 and 7. Because that was the day man was created. So you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's going to be 12. This is the day we are trying to enter. But look how it's all set up. It's set up according to the boundaries, according to the man, which the 12 tribes of Israel. So now we see is that what? On 12,000, because we know that, a day unto man is 1,000 years. Unto the Lord is 1 day. So this would be 12,000 years. This is why you can say from man, according to the day that he was created, man been on the earth or been around for like 6,000 years. That's how you can say that.
Right.
Even when you look at what? Noah, or when you look at Adam. Adam lived what, 900 some years? He almost lived to see a day.
Yeah.
So Adam would make up this day right here, day one.
Yeah.
He would make up that one day. You know what I mean? Because he almost lived to see a day. You know what I mean? When you look at Noah lived almost 900 years. He would make up this day as well. You know what I mean? So as you look at, the seeds that came out of Adam and their lineage or how old they were, they would actually make up these days throughout the creation within that time frame. So now, running all the way down to us, we're going to read it. We'll fall somewhere like right in here. Far as in man. You know what I mean? This is where we would fall because we almost about to enter into that rest. All right? So we're looking at Isaiah chapter 14. Isaiah chapter 14, and let's deal with this rest. Isaiah chapter 14, and let's pick it up at verse 1. Isaiah 14:1. Go ahead, bro.
For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob.
Go ahead.
The people shall take them and bring them into their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids.
Go ahead.
They shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors.
So we see is that what Israel going to be placed in their land. We see is that what even says that strangers shall join with them. Meaning they're going to cleave to the house of Israel. All right, but what is saying in verse 3 though?
And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow.
So now you're going to be given rest from thy sorrow. Because now you put back into your land.
Right.
So now when you're in your land, we got Jesus on the earth.
Right.
So now Jesus is on this earth, and now you have rest, or you don't have to deal with any more sorrow at this point. Keep going though, bro.
From thy fear, from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve.
You see that now hard bondage is no longer going to be your case anymore. You are going to rest. But what it say in verse 4?
That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How had thou the oppressed ceased? How had the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased.
Go ahead.
The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers.
Verse 6.
He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindered.
So we're talking about Satan at this point. You know what I mean? Satan is one that has what? Smote the people with wrath with a continual stroke. You know what I mean? He's the one that, got all this wickedness and chaos going throughout the whole earth. He's the one that's behind the mastermind of the plan to get mankind to fall from salvation. He's the one. So it's saying what? It says, he that rules the nation in anger is persecuted and unhindered. What is it saying in verse 7?
The whole earth is at rest.
So now the whole earth is into the Sabbath. They at rest because what?
And it's quiet.
Go ahead.
They break forth into sin.
Let's go and look at why the whole earth is at rest. Let's go over to Revelation 29. No, I'm sorry, let's go to Micah. Then we're going to go to Revelation 20. Let's go to Micah chapter 4. Micah chapter 4. We see is that what? The whole earth is at rest. What's going on during this time frame while the whole earth is at rest? Micah chapter 4, and let's pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead and read it.
But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and the people shall flow unto it.
So we see in the last days, the Lord is going to have his kingdom set up in the highest mountain. What is in verse 2?
And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths, for the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
You see that? Like the law. This is what's going to go forth from Zion. Because now what? The Lord is back on this earth. Now the Lord's kingdom has been established. Now he's ruling from Zion. The law is going forth. Verse 3.
And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares,
Go
and
ahead.
their spears into pruning hooks.
You notice that, right? You notice is that now they turning their warring material into farming tools.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like now at this time we in rest. See, like even if you want to look at the feast days, you know what I mean? We just gonna take a snippet of the 8th day. But even if you look at the Day of Atonement, like all that has to occur like right around here. It has to occur before we go into the 7th day, because what? We're supposed to be at rest. See, when the Lord returns on the Day of Atonement, he's going to what? Sacrifice bulls or Esau. He's going to kill them off. That's going to be the atonement for the world. But none of that can take place in the 7th day, because it's a day of rest. You know what I mean? Even when you look at what? The Feast of Unleavened Bread. Like, man's supposed to be without sin, what? For 7,000 days. 7 days and 7,000 years. So that would be right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, on the 7th day, what? You ain't gonna like not eat unleavened bread day 1, day 2, and day 3, and then stop. Nah, you gotta eat it all the way through, because what? Leaven represents sin.
Right.
So like now you've gotten rid of leaven or sin for 7,000 years. You know what I mean? How all that tied to, you know, the creation chart. You know what I mean? You can even tie the Passover, because before what? You gotta come up with the blood. You know what I mean? All of that still occurred like right around up in here. But we see that what? Atonement, it gotta be done before this point. You know what I mean? Unleavened bread, that all goes within that. Tabernacles, it all goes within that, because what? The Lord gonna gather the children of Israel, but he gonna take them in the wilderness. They gotta get the commandments, because they can't enter this day. That's according to what? Ezekiel chapter 20. You know what I mean? So all this works perfect. That's why when we look at the boundary of 12, God's operation is absolute. Right. It truly is. So now you look at the creation of man in the chart, it's perfect, brothers and sisters. So even as to what we read in Micah chapter 4, we see is that what? Where you at? Verse 5?
Verse 3.
Verse 3. It says, and he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and shall beat their swords into plowshares, because at this time ain't no more war going to be going on. You know what I mean? The battle of Armageddon that already don't take place, or the valley of Jehoshaphat where Jehovah will judge, all that is done with. Keep going though, bro.
And their spears and pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
You see that? Neither shall they learn war anymore. Keep going.
But they shall sit every man under his vine, under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken.
You see that? Nobody, they ain't gonna be afraid anymore, because that's all going to be done away with. You know what I mean? Like, the Lord is now upon this earth. He's ruling Zion. Keep going, though.
For all people will walk, every one in the name of his God. And we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever.
Verse 6.
In that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halted, and I will gather her that was driven out, and her that I have afflicted.
So we see is that even as you read this Micah chapter 4, you know, it can look confusing because it goes back and forth. You know what I mean? It goes back. So as to what we read in what? In verse 5, for all people will walk everyone in the name of their God. That's what's going on right now. You know what I mean? That's not going to be going on in the kingdom of God. That's going to be on this earth or in Jesus' kingdom. No, that's what's going on now. So now, you know, it jumps back to verse 6. In that day, said the Lord, will I assemble her that halt, and will gather her that's driven out, and her that I have afflicted. Talking about Israel. What is it in verse 7?
And I'll make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cast far off a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth, even forever.
Go ahead.
And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come. Even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem.
Go ahead, verse 9.
Now why is thou crying out aloud? Is there no king in thee?
That's it on that. Let's go over to Revelation 20. Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Revelation 20 and verse 1. When we get it, go ahead and read it. We're still looking at the rest. That's what we're dealing with. We're looking at the rest that now we got to labor for 6,000 years or 6 days. You know what I mean? We got to put work in now. You know what I mean? Whatever entails with that, keeping the commandments, keeping the testimony of Jesus, working, because that's what we doing. We working. And I'm talking about physical. You know what I mean? Some of us might be fortunate enough to be retired, but for the most part, man, we working. You know what I mean? So now, we're going to work for 6 days. And then we're going to enter into the Lord's rest. That's what we're dealing with. So we saw that in what? Isaiah 14. We looked at it in Micah as to how like the Lord's going to set up his kingdom here on this earth, which represents the 1,000-year millennium, as what we're going to read right now in Revelation chapter 20. So let's pick it up in Revelation 20 and verse 1. When you get it, Revelation 20, verse 1. Go ahead, bro.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into a bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more.
So we see that what verse 2 said, what? He's going to be bound for 1,000 years. That's letting you know is that this kingdom that Jesus is going to rule is going to be for 1,000 years. See, the Lord gave you a number, letting you know is that his 7th day represents 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. That's what it represents. But guess what? Today is a shadow of things to come. Mm-hmm. Today is what points to this day. Mm-hmm. That's why the Lord was telling you, according to what took place with those in the wilderness, he had them killed because 40 years on, he had them walking around the wilderness because they grieved him. So letting you know is that they didn't enter into the land of Canaan. If your faith is just like them, you're not going to enter into this. Alright? What we see is that what? It says at the bottom of verse 2, and Satan and bound him 1,000 years. Verse 3.
And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years shall be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season.
So we see is that even Satan gonna be loose for a little season. But that's what was reading in Isaiah chapter 14. We saw that what? The whole earth is at rest when this takes place. When Satan is cast into the bottomless pit, the whole earth is at rest. But it says what? He gonna be loose for a little season. What's in verse 4?
And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus,
Go ahead.
and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years.
Keep on.
But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection.
Verse 6.
Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
Go ahead, verse 7.
And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison.
So we see that now, once the 1,000 years has expired, Satan gonna be loosed again, right? Skip down verse 9 and read that.
And they went up into the breadth of the camp of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints.
So pay attention to what we just read in verse 7. It says, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loose. So now we see is that what? This day is over with. The 7,000 years is over with.
Right.
Guess what day we in right now? You got it on your chart. We going into 8th day.
Mm-hmm.
You see all that time to the feast days?
Yeah.
All right, we going into the 8th day now. So now, like, when you look at the 8th day, like, immediately when you jump to the 8th day, the kingdom of the Father ain't going to be down here on this earth. Nah, it's still going to be a little havoc going on. Mm-hmm. That's what we reading right now. You know what I mean? So now we see is that what? The 1,000 years has expired. Now Satan is loosed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Satan is loosed into 8th day. That's what we read. That's what my Bible reads. That's what yours reading too, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, keep going though, bro.
And compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city.
Go ahead.
And fire came down from God out of heaven, devoured it.
So we see it now. The Father has intervened. You know what I mean? That's who has intervened because, hey, look here, you coming into my day. You know what I mean? This is the Father's day. So now the Father has intervened, and it says what? It says, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. What's that in verse 10?
And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever.
So now we see that the beast, the false prophet, and Satan, they cast into the lake of fire. But what does it say in verse 11?
And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face earth and heaven fled away. And there was found no place for them.
So we see is that now into the 8th day, we're looking at judgment. Judgment got to be set up because in order for the Father's kingdom to come down to this earth, everything got to be complete.
Right.
Everything got to be done. You know what I mean? So now we're looking at the great white throne judgment, and we see is that what? Keep going. Verse 12.
And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. The books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life.
Go ahead.
And dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works.
So we see a judgment taking place, right? And we see is that the books are open, and everybody's going to be judged according to their works, as to what was written in the books. Verse 13.
And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works.
Verse 14.
And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death.
So this is the second death. Death and hell was cast into the lake of fire. But what it say in verse 15?
And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
All right, let's go into 21 now. Let's go to Revelation 21. Let's pick it up at verse 1. Because now we're looking at this new Jerusalem coming down to this earth. You know what I mean? Because at this point, like, we done with the 7th day or the 7,000 year rest. Like, we done with that. So now we don't enter into something new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is the great white throne judgment has already occurred. So now we dealing with the new kingdom that's going to come here to this earth, which represents the 8th day of the Feast of Tabernacles. That's what it represents. So now let's pick it up at Revelation 21 and verse 1. When you get, go ahead and read it.
And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea.
Go ahead.
And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband.
So we see. Loud kids, they crying for bread. Read verse 2 again.
And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband.
So we see is that what? New Jerusalem now. The new kingdom. You know what I mean? That's adorned from the Father. Coming down to earth now. This is what we reading. So we see is that everything had to be completed for this point.
Right.
We see is that judgment took place. We see is that Satan, the beast, and the false prophet, now they cast into the lake of fire. So ain't no more that deception on about. Nah, we now have taken on immortality.
Right.
That's what we've taken on now. We become something new. So now we see this new kingdom coming down to this earth. What's that in verse 3?
And I heard a great voice out of heaven, saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. And they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God.
You see that? Now we see is that what? God the Father is dwelling with men now. That's what we're doing with right now. Because before this point, like, God the Father didn't deal with mankind. So the only way that he could be among men now is you got to be an immortal. You know what I mean? So now we see is that what? It says, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Verse 4.
And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. There shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away.
See that? The former things are passed away. Like death is no more on the table. You know, you ain't crying because you know your loved one don't die. Nah, because at this point, we're all immortals. You know what I mean? Like, we have all made it into this day. See, if you on the right side of the fence, then like, you don't pass the test. You know, you don't got the reward. The reward is you having immortality with the Father and the Son. Now, everybody gonna get immortality now.
Yeah.
Everybody gonna get it. But make sure your immortality is on the right side of the fence.
Right.
Alright? So we see is that what? It says that in verse 4, at the bottom of 4, it says, For the former things are passed away. Skip down to verse 6 and read that.
And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
You said, he said, it is done now. At this point now, Jesus has handed off the kingdom unto the Father. You can go and read that in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Because at this point, death has been defeated.
Right.
It is no longer plaguing mankind anymore because Jesus don't came and put it to rest.
Right.
That was the last enemy that he had to destroy. But guess what? It all was inside of this creation. That man, you know, had to go back through his laboring point. And he made it into the rest. And now, you know, he made it into this day. He got here because what? Christ who was slain from the foundation of the world, he came and abolished death in the body. He came and got rid of it. So like, he came, destroyed death. Now, on this day, it's done. It's complete. It's wrapped. It ain't no going back. You know what I mean? Like, because at this point, I don't know what the Father them might do. You know what I mean? We just guys just chilling. I don't know what the case is, but what I do know is it's done. That's why he said what? He said unto me, it is done. I'm Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Go ahead.
I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely.
You see that? Now you got free access to the fountain of life. Keep going though. Verse 7.
He that overcometh shall inherit all things. And I will be his God, and he shall be my son.
Skip down to verse 10 and read that. Let's look at the foundation, or let's look at the kingdom that's going to be here on this earth and see what it's made up of. Go ahead, verse 10.
And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God.
Go ahead.
Having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone,
Keep going.
clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names were written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel.
We're going all the way back to that boundary. You know what I mean? We're going back to the number 12. And we see that what? It says, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, and he that talked with me, I'm sorry, I jumped too far ahead. Verse 14. Where you at?
Verse 11.
I jumped too far. 12. It says, and he had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written therein, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. We still deal with Deuteronomy 32. What is it in verse 13 though?
On the east, 3 gates. On the north, 3 gates. On the south, 3 gates. And on the west, 3 gates.
Go ahead.
And the wall of the city
And
had...
that's 12. You know what I mean? On each side, 3 gates, that's 12. Go ahead, 14.
And the wall of the city had 12 foundations. In them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
Go ahead.
And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof.
Go ahead.
The city lieth 4 and the length as large as breadth.
Go ahead.
And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs.
So we see that 12,000 furlongs. That's like 1,500 miles. Like that's pretty long. But keep going though.
The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal.
They are all equal. It equals to the number 12. Keep going, verse
He
17.
measured the wall thereof at 144 cubits.
That's 12 what? 12 times 12.
Yeah.
That's 144 cubits. It all centers around the boundaries of man, which is 12. Keep on.
According to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel. And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass.
Go ahead.
And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. And the first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardis, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th the jacinth, the 12th the amethyst.
We looking at 12 stones, man. We see that the Lord is serious about that bound number 12. But go ahead, verse 21.
12 gates for 12 pearls. Every several gate was of 1 pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold. It was as it were transparent glass.
Go ahead.
And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and Lamb are the temple thereof.
Verse 23.
And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to
See,
shine in.
that's letting you know right there is that, you know, that body or they was clothed with light. You know what I mean? Like their garment was as light. Letting you know is that had to be a physical light, because we see is that what? There's no need for the sun or the moon, because they're going to be the light thereof. Keep going though, bro.
For the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is light thereof.
Verse 24.
The nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it.
So now you say at this point, you know, this is when you say. That's why I said what? The nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it.
Right.
You can say, hey, you know, I am highly favored at you. You can say that because you don't made it. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah,
and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it.
Go ahead, verse 25.
And the gates of it shall not
I'm
be.
sorry, skip down to 27 and read that.
There shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life.
This is what's going to enter into it.
That's what's up.
Alright? So we see that what? The Sabbath day was for man to rest. We saw that within inside of creation. I pray somebody got some understanding. I thank you for your time in Jesus. Praise God. Praise the Lord. I'm glad y'all sat tight through that. Alright, so we gonna deal with the announcements, man.
Priors is that the eyes of your understanding were enlightened by today's lesson. DVDs and CDs of the lessons are available. Please place your order in the offering box along with your donation and pick up your DVD/CD at the podium next Saturday. Please tune into Thy Kingdom Come television program, which airs at various locations. Also, join us for question and answer Bible study in about an hour from now, and every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via live stream and/or teleconference at 860-970-0010. Access code 343-531-334#. If you feel you're ready to be baptized, please sign the baptismal list at the podium or speak with Brother Tony or Brother Anthony. On the first Sunday of every month, we broadcast the Bible in plain view. This broadcast gives brothers the opportunity to read and or teach a short 30-minute class. If you're interested in helping, please let us know. The following is dress code for our services. All clothing should be modest in appearance. Nothing tight-fitting, overly baggy, sagging, or revealing should be worn. Men have to remove half and all head covering, and women should wear a head covering such as a hat or scarf, according to 1 Corinthians 11, verse 27. If your young child becomes noisy during the lesson, distracting other members, please remove him or her to the other room next door. Any tithes and or frugal offerings should be put in the offering envelope and place in the offering box at the podium. Pray for our strength, and we pray for you. Until next Sabbath, peace.
Peace. Alright, brothers and sisters, so we'll deal with Q&A. I ain't got to rush back to Atlanta, so I'm here. We'll be here for Tony and Sister Claire's baby shower, so so in other words, we'll be here until they kick us out. Definitely, man, always keep each other in prayer. Man, stay strong in the faith, man, because, shoot, we almost there, man. We almost there, so just stay strong and just understand, man, your adversary, the devil, seeing about whom he made the vow. So, we'll deal with Q&A 30 minutes from now. Other than that, man, everybody need prayer, we'll pray. So let's face Jerusalem. Close out. Go ahead.
Our Father which art in heaven.
Our Father which art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done
in earth,
in earth
as it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Give us this day our daily bread,
And forgive us our debts.
and forgive us our debts,
As we forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation.
And lead us not into temptation,
Deliver us from evil.
but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
Thine is the kingdom,
And the power.
and the power,
And the glory.
and the glory, forever.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord,
For he is good.
for he is
And
good,
his mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
Praise the Lord God of Israel.
Praise the Lord God of
For
Israel,
he is good.
for he is good,
His mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
In Jesus' name we pray.
In Jesus' name we pray.
The Holy One of Israel.
The Holy One of Israel.
The King of Kings.
The King of Kings.
And Lord of Lords.
The Lord of Lords.
The one true God.
The one true God.
There is no other.
There is no other.
Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.